Hello and welcome to this Aviation Week Fast Chat in cooperation with SITA. Today we're going to be discussing how data-driven apps drive efficiency for the aviation industry. But first of all, a few introductions. I'm Victoria Moores. I'm Europe and Africa Bureau Chief for Air Transport World magazine, which is part of Aviation Week. And today I'm going to be joined by Kamal Ahmed, who is the Product Portfolio Director for SITA's application business. Now, Kamal has over 12 years of experience delivering electronic flightback applications. Thank you for joining us today, Kamal.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here today.
So to kick off our conversation, Kamal, what are the main challenges that airlines face today around flight operations?
Thank you. I mean, it's a really good question because this is a very quickly changing environment. So airlines, especially with their flight operations, have always been concerned about a few things, always faced a few challenges. And some of them are quite classical and some of them are sort of new and emerging, which is making life difficult at the moment. So when we look at things like on-time performance, obviously an airline is always very much focused on having its aircraft landing and arriving, departing on time, not too quick, not too slow, but at the time when they're scheduled to arrive and land. So managing all of the stakeholders and the different aspects that can influence this, whether that be the ground services, whether that be the weather in flight, whether it be traffic in the airport environment. This is one of the key challenges and one of the key challenges which has always been there for the airline. And the one thing that is maybe changing there is that actually we're seeing increasing issues with weather, whether that's turbulence or storms due to the changing environmental impacts that we're seeing. And this is really meaning that managing on-time performance has become even more of a challenge for the airlines recently. As well as that, there's the challenges which the airline has, managing passengers, so ensuring a comfortable journey from start to finish for that passenger, ensuring that process is as smooth as possible. They have the availability of the aid at the gate if they need assistance. The airline understands if they need a quick connection between one flight to another. They're able to inform the passengers if the aircraft is going to go through any turbulence and they may spill their tea or coffee or anything like that. So passenger comfort and satisfaction is also there. But alongside that, something we're seeing more and more now, especially, is obviously some of the environmental factors that are coming in. The need to reduce the carbon footprint to meet with a lot of the different regulations that are coming on surrounding that, to reduce the fuel burn and really try and minimize the impacts of that airline business that they're managing and that operation of the flight on the environment as a whole. And often this can be at the detriment to certain other things. So this could, sometimes with managing some of these environmental factors, it could have an impact on your on-time performance in a detrimental way. Or there may be additional cost in reducing that carbon footprint. And all of these things really are some of the sort of key challenges which airlines are trying to balance at the moment. And it's really important that they're able to have solutions and have ways to manage all of those things in what is the most optimum way for them. And this is why that's such an interesting question to have at this time, because it's a constantly changing environment, and we all have to keep up with what those challenges are, and that's something that the airlines have to do as well. They have to keep up with the new regulation around these environmental factors, around the way they manage fuel, and ensure that they're able to deal with that as soon as it happens. And this can cause a lot of difficulties for the airline especially.
Yeah, like you say, in aviation, there are so many moving parts. And as well with the sustainability conversation, basically all the companies are very much focusing on how can they manage their carbon footprint as well. So I'm wondering, in terms of the applications that airlines might be able to use, what are the key drivers that are behind making that more efficient and more sustainable?
As you said, moving parts. There are so many different moving parts that are involved in the operations of a flight, whether that's when the flight is in the air, whether that's when the flight is landing, whether that's when the flight hits the ground and is taxiing to a position, and then the management of the turnaround of that aircraft so that it's ready to go again, sometimes within 25, 30 minutes. So really, really tight timeframes with a lot of moving parts that need to be managed. So one of the key drivers there for applications and for software that airlines need to utilize is being able to have the correct data at the correct time. So if you imagine a flight is arriving early, which you would think is great news, the flight is there like 10 minutes early. The passengers can get home to their kids in a little bit earlier than they would have before. So everything's working great. But if the team that are managing that flight on the ground don't know this flight is arriving early, they're not aware that they need to have staff there to guide that flight into the gate, to put some stairs there so the passengers can get off. The passengers, the flight may end up holding for anyway until the time it's supposed to arrive. This could, even if the ground crew are able to bring in the appropriate services, this may then have a knock-on impact on other flights in the future, causing further delays. So actually, you can see an early arriving flight could cause delays. Whereas if everyone has this information in as early time as possible, so the ground crew can see, okay, this flight is arriving early, we need to shuffle around our procedures and where we're going to be at this time. The caterers can see the same information. The person who's bringing a wheelchair to the gate can see, okay, I have a passenger arriving who needs assistance to get through the terminal and go through security. Then if all of this information is available to all of the correct people, and as I said, there's a lot of those correct people, then the whole flow of any change to what is the scheduled timing can be managed a lot more easily. And when we're building products and applications, we really try and keep that in focus, the collaboration between all of the different stakeholders, and the need for them to be able to see the same information, to see the correct information and see it at the correct time. And this happens all over the place, not just on the ground, but the same thing you can imagine in the cockpit itself. Obviously, with the huge drive to optimize the way aircraft are flying in a push to save fuel, the pilot and the airline, they're always looking to optimize their route, to fly more direct, to avoid some area of bad weather, all in this aim to reduce the fuel use and reduce the emissions coming from the aircraft. Having that data available within the cockpit so that the pilot's able to make that decision, they're able to see any possibilities to optimize routing. The person on the ground is able to see the same information as well within what application they're using. It means that the conversation between those two parties becomes a lot more clear, and there's a lot better options then available and a lot easier for the pilots to make that decision. So really the main driver is data, and ensuring that the data that all of the different users need to see is there in the correct place, in the correct product, in the correct application, and at the correct time, so people are able to make decisions, make really informed decisions. And this is really important, whether you're the pilot, whether you're standing at the gate, you're the gate agent informing passengers when they're able to board the plane. So it impacts everyone, and even a small issue in one of these areas can have a very detrimental impact to the daily flight operations. So this really is one of the key drivers to increase sustainability and efficiency within flight operations at the moment.
Yeah, like you say, airline operations are incredibly time critical. And it's about having the right information at the right time. And as a former ground agent working for an airline, I know exactly how much it can complicate things if an aircraft appears earlier than you expected, when you don't have, if you need them, steps or wheelchairs or anything else. So it can really affect those airline operations. So I'm wondering, in terms of what SITA does, what's your approach to developing applications to solve these problems for airlines?
I think it's again having shared information between different people, between different areas, but ensuring that information is being shown in the correct way to those to those different operators. And I suppose we could take one example here around the weather. So imagine that you have a flight and it's going to this flight is going through a really severe area of turbulence within the next hour or an hour and a half. The pilot within their application, so we have an application called EWAS, which they can see that weather in front of them. They're able to see very clearly an area of turbulence coming up in front of them. They can look in a few hours' time and see, okay, my flight is going to be going through this area of turbulence. They're then able to obviously inform the passengers, or they're able to perform some navigation around that turbulence. They're able to see that in a visual view, and this is very important. The person on the ground may need to understand, okay, this flight is going through an area of turbulence. They don't need to see what that turbulence looks like. They don't need to see that the aircraft is rerouting around it. All they need to understand is, okay, the aircraft has changed its route and is now going to arrive 4 minutes after we expected it to arrive. So the data that the pilot is seeing is the same data that's been used on the ground, but it's been displayed in a different way to that person. That person just sees turbulence. Okay, the aircraft's going to be delayed. We need to manage anything that comes with that delay. The maintenance team, for example, they may see the turbulence and think, okay, maybe we need to do some checks on that aircraft to ensure there's been no damage because it's flown through some turbulence. And the person who's, say, managing that flight using a similar tool may need to understand, okay, we need to see what is the knock-on impact of this flight arriving late. So really, this collaborative approach of connecting people is the way that we develop the applications that we have. So we build on the weather application that we have for the pilots. We build on the flight tracking application that we have for the operations control center, and then we build a platform surrounding that ensures that data can get pushed out to all of the different relevant parties in the way that they need to see that. And really, the idea then is that it enables them to make decisions and work well. So the approach that we have at SITA around all our applications is really trying to connect them together, ensuring that there's a free flow of data between them, and ensuring that the way that data is shown to the users is easy to understand, relates to what they're doing, meaning that they're able to then work with it in the correct way, engage with that data, engage with the product, and really get the most out of it. So this is really the key approach for SITA. The other thing we really try and do is ensure that whatever stage the airline is at, whether they're just starting out with digitizing certain aspects, or they're very advanced and they're optimizing all of their routing, they're managing their taxi flow very well. The applications that we develop can support at that level where they just want to see the flights, they just want to see the weather, and then, or they're at that level where they're optimizing everything, they're managing everything very well, they're doing analysis on all of the data that is available. And we're developing our products so that they can work in anywhere from that lower level to that upper level. And I think that's really important in this environment, because all airlines are different. They all have different ways of operating. They all perform different things, whether it's the type of operation, whether it's the area of the world that they're in. So developing applications need to have a level of flexibility to support all these different circumstances.
Yeah, it sounds like you're collecting up that data, but then really focusing on what the user of the data needs to get from what's being provided and what they really need to see or want to see, and not bombarding them with too much in that.
Absolutely. So interface design is very good.
Thank you. Well, that brings us just about to the end of our discussion today. So I wanted to thank you for your contribution there, Kamal, and also to thank our listeners for watching as well. We look forward to seeing you all next time. Thank you.